Hey, what's going on, baseball fans? Thanks for coming back and checking out another episode of the Going Yard podcast. Before we get talking about hitting, which we're going to talk about a lot today, we're going to talk about the Swing Tracker. We're going to give them a little bit of love over at Diamond Kinetics. Swing Tracker is the most precise and complete swing analysis and development tool available today. Whether you are a player, a parent, or coach, you will find a wide range of resources to help you achieve your goals. Swing Tracker has a dedicated iOS app for both baseball and softball. Just go to diamondkinetics.com, enter the promo code GYP10, you get 10% off.
Yeah, it makes it less than $90 with free shipping. That's less than 2 hitting lessons that you can have information and track your progress from start all the way through. You can track, from lesson to lesson. Every time you go to the batting cage and take your round of BP, you can track all your analytics, and it'll store it for you. It will actually, the coolest thing in this, people, is that you can just set it up your iPad or your phone and video, and it will chop each swing into its own video for you to be able to post and share on social media or send, to whoever your coach that you're working with, maybe remotely. So make sure you check this out. It's well worth the money.
That's right. Again, that's diamondkinetics.com. Enter the promo code GYP10 for 10%. And the cool thing is you can use this along with what you're going to learn here today from our guest. We have Joey Myers on. He is from the Haines Performance Lab. We get into it. It's pretty deep. I don't know if you guys have how long you've been listening, but we've had some guests on the show that kind of geek out on some of these amazing, like scientific. They look at hitting the ball in a scientific way, which I think is amazing. It's a big thing going on now. It's very popular with data and analytics and all that stuff. But he talks more about the movement to create a better hitter and how to make these changes, these subtle changes that he'll talk about a little bit in here. But I think you guys are really going to enjoy this, whether you're a coach or player for your team.
What's great about this, Dan, is he doesn't just go into launch angle and people try to figure out, you got to hit the ball at this angle to make it go this far with this much exit velocity. He actually talks about the body positions and movements that are critical to allow those things to happen, which I think is overlooked by most coaches because they don't take the time to study that part of it and understand how the body should work properly. And one thing he really talks about is avoiding injury from overuse or, not using your body properly, which I think is critically important in today's world, especially with one-sport athletes and kids playing year-round or 9 months out of the year and never really taking a break. So I would say that's probably one of the bigger things that I took away from it, too. It's not just the stuff he talks about, but how to actually apply it in the real world and the real practices and the real lessons that you're doing.
Absolutely. Let's get to it. Hey, Joey, thanks for joining us.
Thank you guys very much. I appreciate the time. And when I can talk to 2 other dudes about baseball, it's nice because my wife doesn't want to hear it.
Perfect.
Hey, it sounds like us. That's why we lock ourselves in a room and make all these phone calls, honestly.
Exactly.
Actually, my wife doesn't complain when I put it on TV, thank goodness. She just kind of does her own thing and picks up, when things get good, she'll pay attention.
Hey, right. Or like my wife, when we were watching the Fresno State baseball team in 2008 when they won the World Series, she was really attentive at that point.
I bet.
whatever makes it work, you know what I mean? And
exactly. we gotta have Kardashian drama in it for them to even be attracted to whatever they're watching.
Yeah. Yep, exactly. Well, that's everything out there kind of running the world right now. So with the Kardashians and Beyoncé's of the world. So but I tell you what, I'm really excited for this one just because I just officially, well, I guess it's not technically official, but I kind of landed my first coaching gig as an assistant coach with Tyler here. Tyler's been coaching for like 12, 13, 14 years. I have yet to land a gig yet just because I've been kind of reserved with it, but I've been around baseball my whole life, and I'm excited. So I'm going to be able to, help coach.
Where at?
It's going to be an 8U team here in Hanover. It's going to be a travel or tournament team. So I'm excited for it.
Yeah, I told, because Dan's son, is 6 going on 7 this year. I was like, I'll go back because I've always said, like, for the past 3 or 4 years, I want to go back and kind of write some of the things I've done wrong and some of the things I wish I knew when I first started, and some of the dumb things I used to say that now I'm like, yeah, why'd I do that? You know what I mean? Thanks to people like you and others that are in the baseball community now that kind of like, man, if I knew that when I was 15 or actually 12, it probably would have helped me out a lot.
Oh, big time. Yeah, big time.
Joey, let's just dive right on in here a little bit and go back a little bit before we dive into what you got going on right now. Let's talk a little bit about your baseball story in your past and what, your high school years were like, kind of, and what positions you played, some of the things you did well, some of the things you didn't do so well.
Yeah. So I'll go back even a little farther and try and go a little quicker, catching you up to speed. My last 2 years in Little League, actually my last year in Little League was really good. I started to pick up books and watch videos and things like that on how to get better. And I had a local coach that I worked with, Randy Cervelli, hitting wise. That was kind of the first time the last couple of years in Little League, like 11, 12 years old, and started to really see some results. And that last year I had a cartoonish video game type year where I hit something like 8-8. I could remember the 4 outs that I had, 3 strikeouts and a pop up. That was in regular league, hit about 13 or 14 homers. And then in All-Stars, which we played some really, really good teams. A lot of those guys grew up to go D1 and professional ball and stuff. And in All-Stars, I hit 770 with another 13 jacks and stuff like that. So it was just crazy ignorance on fire stuff. And then I thought if a little bit of a couple books were good, then a lot of it would be even better. And that ended up doing the opposite and really screwing me for about 4 years. So it got me into about my right after my sophomore summer, or going into my sophomore summer, before my junior year in high school. And I just said, you know what, to heck with the books. I'm just going to base all my swing off of feel. I'm just going to, whatever feels right, that's what I'm going to do. I've just kind of gone off into the weeds for 4 years. And that summer before my junior year, I don't know if it was my coach or myself, but I started doing what I teach now is called finger pressure. We use finger pressure. So it's the top hand, hitter's top hand, bottom 3 fingers, and you squeeze super tight, like an 8 out of 10 tight, from the moment you pick your front foot up to all the way through impact and follow through. And that summer, I ended up the sophomore season. I played varsity. It was my first year of varsity, and I hit like 250. We needed an outfielder, and I was pretty good. And so I played all season in the outfield for the varsity team. Hit about 250. Not really any homers or anything. I think I had quite a few doubles, maybe half a dozen or a dozen doubles or something like that year. So I did okay, but it wasn't anything crazy. And then that summer, which was Legion Ball, about 2 weeks after the season ended, so it wasn't like a whole year had passed and I'd gotten stronger and bigger and stuff. And I ended up hitting 400 with hitting my first couple homers and had quite a few doubles in a shorter span. We weren't playing as many games, obviously, during Legion Ball as there was a regular season. And so it was interesting because that was something that got me fired up. And I ended up the last 2 years of high school hitting around like 398, had a couple homers. We played in a big park and had a lot of doubles. And then, so that was just more on the field thing. And that was kind of my high school career. Ended up getting a scholarship to go to Fresno State for 4 years. So I got to play with Coach Bob Bennett, who was elected into the NCAA Division I Baseball Hall of Fame back in, I think, 2012 or something like that. And then I got to play with Coach Batesel, who it was his first year there, who's coaching now, who was the coach 2008 when they won the World Series. So had some good coaching, but I would say from 2013 on, I learned more about hitting outside of my experience and diving into some of the books that I ended up diving into. I'm sure we'll go into that, but that was kind of my career in a nutshell.
Well, the one thing that you had said that I thought about it, because this happens, I mean, it happens in baseball. It happens right now with, people, health and fitness. They get this information overload and they try this one thing and it's working for them, but then they're like, oh, wait, here's this other thing. And then they try that. And then before you know it, they got 5,000 things that they're doing and none of it's working anymore, and you're getting frustrated. And you're figuring out, well, okay, what was it that worked and what made it not work anymore? So I, when you were talking about that and you decided to go back to feel, I think that's so important because, especially now with Instagram and all sorts of videos on YouTube, there's too much information out there. And the one thing I could definitely say with our podcast, we like to have guys and gals on here that have similar thought processes, and I think it's important to have. But I think it's so cool that you brought that up, because it happens every single day, I think.
Yes, yeah, and I think the big part of where 2013, when I mentioned 2013, I think the biggest thing that I really wanted to find were those principles, were what we call applying human movement principles that are validated by real science, not bro science to hit the ball, right? So what are those human movement principles? And in 2013, I started reading some books, one by Thomas Myers, same last name. I'm sure we're genetically related on the family tree somewhere, but I don't know the guy. But he wrote Anatomy Trains. I read that book in a very sleep deprived haze. That was when our first son was born. Our first kid was born, my son. And another one was Dr. Serge Grakovetsky's The Spinal Engine. And then the third one that kind of did it was Dr. Eric Dalton and his book, Dynamic Body, I think is what it was, Dynamic Body or Dynamic Movement. And those books kind of dove into the spinal engine mechanics and springy fascia, things like that. And as I was reading, I actually got those books not to reverse engineer the swing, which it ended up being, but more to help some of the ailments that I've had, the movement ailments and movement dysfunction I developed through the 17 years of ball that I played, and swinging right-handed, throwing right-handed, not doing it left-handed, and the imbalances that I created to have an inner knee tightness that I just couldn't get rid of. And I was trying everything. And those books came to mind to fix my knee. But actually the light bulb started going on when I was reading about this stuff. And it was new age at the time. Now it's starting to kind of grow a little bit in the industry. People are starting to wake up to what springy fascia is, what it does, how it helps the body, how you can use it to skate around or prevent injury, things like that, and have a safe swing, because there's a lot of swings. You guys probably seen them. There's a lot of swings on Twitter, hitting Twitter, and I'm not on Instagram as much, but I'm sure they're on there too. Well, from what I hear, they're on there too. But these hitters, they're really arching their lower backs in some of these drills, and that is horrible. Those hitters are going to end up with back spasms as they get older, possibly even wearing a hole in their lower back. So it's important not only that we use principles to performance, the swing, whether it's physics, biomechanics, or engineering principles, and apply them to human movement, but it's also that they have to be safe, and that's the big thing. There's some safe factors that we use, or principles that we use, that we build into the swing to make sure that the neck part of the spine and the lower back part of the spine are in good positions in a rotational movement. So yeah, principles are the big thing, because the shiny objects are really easy to fall for. And there's a lot of bro science out there where somebody will say, well, I listened to Ted Williams one day and he told me to do this. And it really has no basis in any kind of science, not really validated by science, but they said, well, because Ted Williams said it, or Mike Schmidt or Tony Gwynn or something like that, then it's got credibility. But you have to test it. You have to put it to the test. In the swinging experiment, you got to look and see if there is a human movement principle that's validated by science that it's attached to. It has to flush out. It's not. Otherwise, it's not. If you put it in an actual, put it through the scientific method, most likely the probability of it consistently being success is very nil. So a lot of factors that kind of go into fleshing out what is, or filtering out what is and what does not work.
Now, if you can, let's just back up a couple steps a little bit here, and just how did you get into coaching? What was that transition like for you outside of after your playing days at Fresno? What got you into wanting to read these books and all that, and apply that to coaching? So, were you coaching in college, doing clinics? Were you doing clinics in high school? How did coaching come about?
Yeah, kind of unconventional. A lot of my story is kind of unconventional. Some would say I have a master's or PhD in biomechanics, physics, and all these other things, kind of this MMA type style of education, because I'm all self-taught. I just go kind of where my brain has a passion for, or has a unique interest to. But I actually, after college ball was done, my wife and I, we were dating at the time, we studied abroad, went to Italy. I was just tired of baseball. I was burnt out, didn't want to play it, didn't want to coach it, didn't want to do anything with it. So we went to one of the countries in the world where there's baseball is virtually non-existent. It's there, but it's not there, is Italy. So we studied in Italy for a semester. Soccer's really big there. That's their thing. And so I got a little bit of a break, a little bit of breather from it. I didn't see it, hear it, nothing over there. When I came back, it had kind of renewed my passion for it, but not so much to play it. Like some of my friends want to play in hardball leagues and stuff like that. I didn't really want to play it anymore, but I wanted to coach it. So I started doing lessons at a local hitting facility here. That was actually the only one at the time. Hartke's baseball camp, something like that. And I would do summer camps with them. And then during the spring, I'd do lessons and get paid $15 to do an hour lesson. And where they're charging 60. So I'm only making 45. They're making 15. I'm making 15. They're making 45. I'm like, dude, I'm doing all the work. All you do is scheduling, so it didn't make sense to me. At the end of that summer, I ended up building up enough of a clientele where I went on my own, and it was small. It was a small clientele. It wasn't a big one. And at the time, I wasn't teaching what I'm teaching now. I was teaching that down and through style of hitting. And so that's where it got me into coaching. So I coached one season with a buddy in middle school. He was a middle school teacher, and I helped him out with this seventh grade team. And so that was really the only stint of coaching that I did. Now I'm starting to do it with my 6-year-old boy. So I'm kind of taking the reins over a buddy of mine. His son, my son, are both around the same age. And so we're picking that part of it up on the coaching. But I didn't go in and coach high school or college or pro at the time. Just more of like the small private group lessons is what I do now.
Gotcha. So when did the Haines Performance Lab come about? When was that something that you're like, all right, this is what I'm doing. I'm going to make it a kind of a mobile clinic thing?
Yeah. So swingsmarter.com was the first kind of go of it. That was all the down and through stuff. And I had probably written, I want to say maybe 100 or so blog posts at the time from that. And that was in 2008. 2008 is when I think Fresno State won the World Series. And I started that, did that for a while, and did the starting lineup store, which was kind of a drop ship site, a retail site where I would handpick like the best hitting aids that actually help with the swing and stuff like that. And then it wasn't until 2013 as I started to go into these books, the Thomas Myers, Dr. Serge Grakovetsky, and it was just going to be too much of an overhaul to take Swing Smarter and redo everything. So I just kind of rebranded and did hittingperformancelab.com from there. And then over the years, I phased out swingsmarter.com. So if you go there, I don't even know if it's even up. But hittingperformancelab.com now has almost, I think we're 5 blog posts short of 300 free blog posts that I've done. I tried to do a blog post a week since 2013. So it's amassed quite a bit of content on there, free content. And it's funny when people will say, well, you're just out to make a buck, you're selling your book or whatever. I go, hey, you can go over to my blog and you can there's almost 300 free blog posts that you can go partake over there. So if you don't know me, they're usually projecting about somebody else out there that's doing it. They're projecting on me what somebody else with some other knuckle draggers doing. They're not doing it right. So, but yeah, so that.
And really quick, Joey, for that person who wants to say that, they should go on your site and pay the shipping and handling to get the book for $8.95 because it's probably the cheapest amount of information you're going to get for $8.95, people. Okay, so if you want to run your mouth about it, maybe you should just buy it and find out before you run your mouth, because I'm sure you'll refund it if you don't get anything out of it.
But it doesn't matter. Yeah. I found it doesn't matter what the price is. People will still complain. I mean, I have a course that it's an essentials course. I have one for each kind of category or bucket of information that I use. I have one for power, one for line drives, one for vision tracking timing. So I have essentials courses for each of those. And the sale for those courses are $7. So normally they're $19.99, $20. And I have a survey that goes out after about, I think, 13 days. It's like an auto email that goes out. If they bought, and it takes them off that list and puts them on a buyer's list. And so the people that haven't bought, they go through the whole sequence of emails. The last day, give them a survey, and it says something like, do you hate me? is the subject line. And it's just a tongue-in-cheek email. It's like,
Right.
what was it about the product that you didn't like or blah, that you didn't want to buy? It turns you off. And I get a lot of people say, I don't have the money right now. $7, like $7.
Yeah.
So, there's usually something else behind that. It's not the money, it's something else, But it's just funny. It doesn't matter what the price is. There's always going to be people that are barking about it.
Well, let's stay on that for a second. You're an Amazon best-selling author. One of the books is called The Catapult Loading System, How to Teach 100-Pound Hitters to Consistently Drive the Ball 300 Feet. Can you talk to us and our listeners about what was the main driving force behind writing that, and then a couple of the key points that you cover and try to drive home?
Yeah, so in that book, I wrote that January 2017. It took a year, January 2018, to be a Amazon bestseller. So it was in the category of coaching baseball or something. I have a snapshot of a screenshot of my book. It was the purple cover. That was the first edition. The blue cover is the second edition. So, people get that one. That one's more up to date. But I have a snapshot of the purple one on top with the bestseller label on it, and the Ted Williams Science of Hitting right below it without the bestseller thing on it. So it's kind of cool.
Oh, that's neat.
That it kind of worked out that way. So it took about a year or so to get that. And I've given away probably over 10,000 copies of that on Kindle, because you can do giveaways for 7 days or whatever. So that came about. That was the most of the emails and most of the things that were coming in that were asking questions and things where it was all about power. Hey, how do we get my hitter to do this or that, get it out of the infield, hit for more power, blah, blah, blah. And a lot of them were smaller ones. It was, well, my kid's 65 pounds. Can they hit for power? My kid's 95 pounds. Can they hit for power? And what I was finding with my own hitters, this was kind of right when I wrote the book, is I had a few of my own hitters that we've been working these principles. And I had two brothers. I had a brother I think he was 11 at the time. His younger brother was 9. They're 2 years apart. The older brother was 93 or 94 pounds at the time. I think in the book I say it was 97, but he was actually 90, 93, 94. Hit a few balls 300 feet and practice in games. It wasn't just practice, but games too, 300 feet. So that was tripling his body weight in batted ball distance. And 300 feet is the length of a football field. If you put it that way to people, they're like, whoa, really? And his brother, I think he was maybe 80 pounds or 83, 84 pounds at the time, he hit one 270 feet. I hit a couple 270 feet. So I had another one with 67 pounds that hit a ball over 180 feet. And that was just a shocker to most people because they're used to teaching a certain way. They didn't really know about this stuff. And they hear that stuff and it's just disbelief. They have no clue. They're like, no way, you're BSing me. There's no way that's possible, because they have no explanation on how that can even happen, because of the old way that they're teaching, or they've never seen it before, because they don't know what the power of these principles. And it's really, I can't say this on Facebook or Twitter or anything like that. I can't say that results are instant, but they are instant, because they'll ban I've got my ad account banned on Facebook because I said in one of the posts is that this happens instantaneously. And they didn't like that word, but it is. Right. It's actually within changing. I can't tell you how many emails, how many social media posts, comments that I get of people going, "We just went out and tried it today. Now my daughter, when she hits the ball, sounds like the shotgun's going off." Just a couple of the principles in the book, showing the numbers or finger pressure, and they're like, "Now it sounds like a shotgun is going off when she's hitting it, instant, like a light switch." So it was crazy. And then the response when the book went out was just ridiculous. I mean, it was crazy. People were snapping it up, and it was from all ends. It wasn't just little league coaches. It was pro guys. It was pro scouts. I've had pro scouts come in. I've had pro guys, major league guys come in, college coaches. When we do ABCA conferences, if I go with the backspin tee guys, I went with them in Anaheim, and then just recently in Dallas. And I mean, it's all over the map. People coming up from the professional world, the college world, and all the way down to little league, high school, little league. They're just going, dude, this male and female, baseball, softball, it doesn't matter. It works for like all levels. It's crazy.
Now, Joe, what would you say is the biggest change from 2013 to 2019 with the information that you've provided from that book to now?
So from now, in that particular book, I think it's just that the principles have proved themselves out. When I wrote the book, right before I wrote the book, I did a lot of swing experiments using the Zep app. And I mean, people can use Blast or anything like that, Diamond Kinetics or Hit Tracks if they got access to a Hit Tracks. But I was doing swing experiments, and that was kind of what put everything on the map. So people went out and they started to test that kind of stuff. And so now it's been, I've gotten so many emails, like I just said, emails, comments, stuff like that, people confirming my swing experiments, confirming the results and outcomes that I'm getting with my own hitters. So it's just layered and layered and layered and layered and layered, validating the principles and how they work and how quick they work and stuff like that. And so what's happened since kind of then is I've kind of morphed some of the things a little bit. I've morphed how I teach, mostly like using the different cues that I'm using to help. There's been quite a few objections that have come up from other coaches saying, "Oh, hitters can't show their numbers to the pitcher because they can't do that at the high levels." Even though I got so many images of guys like JD Martinez, Mike Trout, Miguel Cabrera, Jose Altuve, they're all doing it. They're all doing it at the high level. But then they go, well, they can't get around on an inside pitch very well. You know, they won't do that on an inside pitch. And I got video of that, and them hitting the ball that's 96 in, still showing their numbers. And so those objections have been raised, and then I knock them down. I shoot them down. Say, you know, you can just see for yourself what's happening. Here's the science of what it is. Here's the swing experiment that I use that you can duplicate, and just try it yourself and see for yourself. Because some of these guys out there have these $20,000 expensive hitting calculators like Hit Tracks. Go use that and go do the experiment yourself and see how it turns out. Do it the same way I do, and see if you get the same results. So the layers and layers it just made the system more credible. But then now I'm kind of moving on. I'm starting a new book that is going to hit more of the pitch playing dominator program of my course, like hitting more line drives, reducing strikeouts, things like that, dealing with launch angles, dealing with like line to line, working across the field now. So there's been, when those objections got raised on the catapult loading system principles, it made me question, okay, well, what if you have these hitters like Miguel Cabrera, Altuve that are showing their numbers on 96 in or 96 plus up? Well, then what is it then that these other guys are teaching that could possibly be causing a speed bump for them to get over? And what's interesting is I had a hitter of mine who now I've been working with him since he was 7. He's going to be 16 this summer. So he's one of my older veteran hitters, I call him. And this was a couple of years, or about a year or two ago, when I was dealing with some of these objections. And he was having a hard time hitting inside pitch. And he asked me, he said, "Am I showing my numbers too much?" And I said, "No, I don't think so. I think you're doing good," because he was just getting stocked up on that inside pitch every time we'd do our live stuff. And so it got me to think about it. So I came home. I went on to Craig Hyatt's Twitter because he's got all these looping videos. He does a really good job of getting those videos up there. And I decided to look at, okay, let's look at the guys that show their numbers. Let's look at the guys that are showing their numbers while hitting 96 or 96 plus. And let's see both the pitcher's view, because that's where you can see the showing numbers really well. And then let's look at the chest view and see what's changing from hitting in, middle in, or a third of the plate in versus a middle third or half of the plate away. Let's see what's happening with the barrel path. And what I was finding was it wasn't the showing numbers, wasn't even if the guy is locking their arm out at the start of the turn, like the arm bar. It wasn't even that. What it was when the barrel leaves the shoulder. That's what was changing. So you would see on a pitch middle away, you would see the barrel leave the shoulder sooner. It would basically, like a lot of those out there, a lot of these guys out there will teach kind of like hitting the catcher's glove, knocking the catcher's glove off, right? So what we do is we have 3 different catcher's glove zones. So we have one that's in line, an imaginary catcher's glove in line with the hitter's belly button, imaginary catcher's glove in line with the hitter's back foot, and then we have the regular catcher's glove. And the inside pitch and the high pitch is the one that those guys like Chris Davis, the A's, and Miguel Cabrera, Jose Altuve, and 96 in or 96 plus up, what they were doing is it's almost like they were cutting their swing down. When the barrel entered the zone changed. And it was later, they would release the barrel later into the zone when the ball was closer to their eyes, whether in or up. And that was the difference. It had nothing to do with showing the numbers. That wasn't a mid swing adjustment they were making. It had nothing to do with that. It had really nothing to do with if a guy arm barred or had like a slight bend in his front arm as he started his turn. It was when the barrel left his shoulder. So I try not to over analyze. I try not to read other people's stuff. I try not to really other people's hitting stuff. If it's biomechanical physics, that kind of stuff I'll read into, but I won't read other people's stuff because it'll really dilute and kind of bias you in a certain area, and you almost totally blind to another area. And I feel that's kind of the issue right now with a lot of coaches out there.
Yeah, I'm listening to you, and I'm just thinking of, because we've been on, because both of our daughters, they play for the same softball team, and we're just trying to little tweaks here and there with their swings, and I'm just thinking like, man, I gotta really focus on this stuff with them, and then with my son being 6 years old, just like these little things I could do to tweak and just really crank it up, man. I'm excited for that.
Yeah.
But I do want to say, you had mentioned about you have another book coming on. Was that the Ugly Truth about hitting ground balls? Was that?
No. So those two I've already done.
Okay.
Those are that one was a blog post that was really, really popular. I had to reset all my social media stuff because I went through. I had to change my Haines Performance Lab site servers, and so all that got resetted. So you're not going to see that on the blog post. But it got like 4,500 likes when it first came out. That was like a brush fire. So I turned it into a book, put it on Amazon. The Science of Sticky Coaching book was a book that I had written back in like 2010 or something like that. It was a PDF sitting on my computer collecting dust. And then when I wrote my Catapult system book, I was like, you know what? Let me just convert this into a book, put it, get it through Pressbooks, and then got it up on Kindle and Amazon. So it was an easy one. I'd already written it, and I had already gone through it and had proofreaders do it. It was just ready. It was just waiting to go. This is a new one. So this is one that's going to be more like the Catapult system, except instead of power, it's going to address more of hitting more line drives and reducing strikeouts. So it has to deal with like the launch angle craze. We're gonna go into that and what's right and wrong about that, and we're gonna talk about also using all fields, going line to line, teaching hitters how to do all that kind of stuff. So it's gonna go from A to Z, and it's gonna have in that respect, in the hitting more line drive, more consistent line drives, and reducing strikeouts. And then it's gonna have another element to it that I get a lot of questions from coaches is basically, how do you teach the swing? How do you teach this from like an A to Z type of thing? What can I do pregame for my hitters to prime movements for the games, get them to transition in the game? Detect and correct. How do I find, what is it? If my hitter's popping out too much, what am I looking for? What's the problem I'm looking for? And then how do I fix it? So I'm going to be doing, they're going to be short courses, online courses that people can purchase on the back end. It'll be small, like $5 to $10 per lesson. They're just like a little detect and correct coaching lesson. And it'll go from all spectrums of most of the questions that I get on, how do I correct this? How do I detect and correct this? So that'll be kind of on the back end as well. So it's gonna be a pretty all encompassing in the line drive, reducing strikeouts, and then that other one, the detect and correct videos, the lessons will kind of cover all aspects of power, line drives, and the vision tracking timing stuff. So this book's going to be totally different versus the other ones. It's going to go more into the other bucket that I teach.
Now, I just got a couple things here I want to ask, and just because these are some of the cues that are kind of well known, like hands to the ball.
Yep.
Squash the bug.
Yep.
Elbow up. What else? Whatever else. So what are some of those things? What do you see that is wrong with some of those statements? And I'm sure you have some long answers, but if you just want to, for that little league dad out there who really doesn't know, who thinks like, yeah, that's what I was taught in 1975, I'm going to keep on telling kids about it. Can you just break some of those things down and why, different terminology, different ways could be more effective?
Yeah, a couple principles. So one is a Goldilocks golden rule. So we talk about that a lot out at the field, whether it's mechanics we're talking or where they're hitting the ball. So you never want too much. You never want it nothing at all. You want just right, just like Goldilocks. And the other one is it's a psychological term called paradoxical intention. And that one means paradoxical intention. An example would be if somebody's sweating in social settings, they sweat way too much. And what they can do is they do the opposite of what they would normally tell themselves. Normally they say, don't sweat, don't sweat, don't sweat, don't sweat. And bam, it just sweats in buckets, right? So what they do is do the opposite of what they would do. That's the paradoxical part of it. The intention of it is to say, okay, I'm going to sweat buckets. I'm going to break a record of sweating in the social setting. I'm going to break it. And so what happens is they may still sweat, but they won't sweat as much because there's like some kind of the psychological part of it kind of puts a squeeze on the brain and causes it to work harder, and the anxiety builds and it makes it worse. Same goes with sleep. Insomniacs tend to tell themselves, you just got to get to sleep. I just got to sleep. I got to sleep. And so if they tell themselves, okay, I'm going to stay up all night. They'll end up getting to sleep. They'll end up falling asleep. So when it comes to hitting, when you take those cues, you take the squish the bug, which actually I don't even have an opposite cue for that. But definitely the cues like swing down or swing up, right? So you have kind of both, and we'll address this in this new book. But what happens is most coaches here locally, where I'm at in Fresno, California, Central California, is they're teaching a hit the ball on the ground, hit the ground ball. So this is in high school. Hit the ball on the ground, get ground balls. Some of them are good with the line drive. They're okay with that. But there's a couple schools, softball and baseball programs, that don't even want a line drive. They want ground balls, 100% pure ground ball. So what happens is if you take a team that's, say, a third of them hit ground balls naturally. Like if you just go out in the field, don't coach them, just kind of throw it to them. A third of them hit ground balls, majority of ground balls. A third of them will hit a majority of line drives, which are going to be your better hitters. And then a third of them are going to hit a majority of fly balls. So if you tell that group, the third groups, you tell all of them, blanket statement, swing down, hit the ball on the ground. What will happen is your ground ballers will hit more ground balls, a higher percentage. Your line drivers will actually get worse. They'll hit more ground balls. They'll still hit some line drives, but a higher percentage of ground balls will go up. But here's who's going to get better, your fly ball hitters. Because you're going to tell them to swing down, they're going to end up hitting more line drives. But if you take now, and you do the reverse is true if you tell all of them, instead of hitting it down on the ground, hit ground balls, you tell all of them to hit it up in the air, which a lot of coaches are doing out there, hit it up, hit the back top third part of the cage, hit the top third. So if you take that same third example, and the hitters that will improve the most are the ground ball hitters, or the opposite. They'll end up starting to hit more line drives. The line drive hitters will still hit line drives, but they're going to hit more fly balls. Their fly ball percentage will go up. And then the pop fly hitters are just going to hit more fly balls. So what you do is you do the opposite. You leave the line drive hitters alone on the ends. You do the opposite on the ends. Leave the line drive hitters alone. Let them do their thing. You tell the ground ball hitters to hit it up, and you tell the fly ball hitters to hit it down. And so what will happen is now you're going to have a lot more line drives, a lot more doubles, a lot more homers. And that's where those opposite, or those bad cues, we call them bad cues. So most of my hitters, I don't have too many that swing down. Like if you look at their barrel path and they're swinging down, I might have one or two. So it's like maybe 2% or 1% actually swing down. Most of them have a hard time swinging. They all swing up. So it's not being able to handle the barrel, especially the younger hitters, like the ages that you're talking about with your kids. They tend to drop the barrel and then it sweeps up just because they're not strong enough to handle the barrel and control the barrel. So we do a lot of heavy overload training to help get them stronger in that. And we call them barrel surgeons. They become a barrel surgeon when they put their own bat in their hand. And so that's what we do with most of the hitters is we're teaching basically the bad cues: swing down, get on top of the ball, barrel above your hands, because most of them are uppercutters. They're uppercutting the ball. And so when we get them swinging down, or when their feel, we want their feel to be that way. But what's actually real, how that translates, it ends up line drive on a line for the most part. And then it's from there, it's making adjustments. So I tell them the best hitters in the world baseball and softball, are really good at making adjustments, and they do them very quickly. And a lot of times they don't even know they're doing it. It's not a conscious thought. It's a subconscious thought. So they're just doing it. Like they hit a fly ball, say to the second baseman, and they're in their mind already thinking that they need to get on top of the next ball to get it more on the line. They're not consciously thinking, it's subconscious. But we have to teach most hitters, at least I teach most of my hitters, to think consciously about that. So it's over and over. It's beaten into their heads. We talk about it all the time as we kind of clean up their mechanics, because that'll help them to control that too. But we go into a lot of detail. We work on different cues to get them to, if they hit a ground ball, next one they're hitting in the air. And if they hit the next one in the air, then we're on the ground. And we just kind of keep trying to take their crosshairs, moving it up and down until eventually we get it right in that middle to where they're just banging it. Wherever that ball is off the tee, that the ball's coming the same height off the bat. Or if I'm throwing the ball to them, we call it coming through the tube. So if I throw it, comes out of my hand, goes through the tube, gets to them in that tube. So that tube is a certain height from the ground. So if it's 4 feet from the ground, the ball coming in, so that tube is set at 4 feet, then they're hitting that ball back through the tube at 4 feet. If it's coming in at 1 inch off the ground, they decide to swing, that they're swinging, they're hitting it, and they're keeping it 1 inch off the ground. That's their main objective, because what's going to happen is the misses are going to be more. They're going to miss the ball more. The best hitters in the world miss the ball 80% of the time, and they hit it right on the numbers 20% of the time. So the average major league line drive rate is 21%. The average major league fly ball, ground ball rates are 40% each, somewhere around there. I think ground balls are 44 and fly balls are, I think, 37 or something like that. We just kind of round it, so 40 and 40. So 80% of the time, major leaguers are mishitting the ball. The best hitters in the world, they're hitting it right on the screws at 20%. So what we're doing is, our goal is not top of the back third part of the cage. Our goal is to hit the ball back through the same tube that it's coming in. So it's basically a 10 to 15 degree launch angle for those launch angle people out there. We're trying to hit it right back through that, because what I know is that they're going to miss the ball more than they're going to hit it on the screws. So we call it quality misses. So if they hit a ball like a double homer off me in the cage, I go, great quality miss, but get back to the tube. Because if you get back to the tube, that 10 to 15 degree launch angle, you're going to hit more of those doubles and homers, just because we know you're going to miss it more than you're going to hit it on the screws. So long story short, swinging down, barrel above the ball, those bad cues that we all kind of learned growing up that we're told, they work, but they work for certain hitters.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny how things, change and evolve, and, even the same coaching point could be said a couple different ways, which I think is unique. I know one thing that I think is important, because I see this with younger kids, especially when you get a kid that's maybe 6 to 8 years old, and then it kind of happens again when you get to maybe like 12, 13, 14. Just like the size of these bats that some of these parents are buying don't even help the kids perform. I would say that's probably as an important piece as all the mechanical problems that you see. I think some of that might lead to some of the mechanical problems. What do you think about that?
Yeah, no, totally. And what's funny is I used to get asked that question: what size is Johnny's bat too big, or is Sally's bat too big? And how do we know? And when we go to the store, how do we know if the bat is that size too big or small or whatever? And I've actually there's so many different standards or tests that you can do that I've read over the years. You can hold the bat out with the straight arm out to your side or out in front of you, and if they start dropping, then it's too heavy. What I do now is I tell them, as long as you're in a range within their age with the bat size, I would err on the size of a little heavier if it's an ounce or two heavier, and maybe an inch longer than too small, because in our training we use a lot of overload in-loaded bats, meaning heavier bats. And I learned this from Perry Husband, and I don't know if you've had him on, but if you haven't, you got to have him on. But he talks about so ideally having a +10 overload is ideal. A lot of swing experiments he's done, he's seen that's where they get the biggest bang for their buck. So I have a couple anchor bats. They're called Goliath. They're overload bats. And the 32, I think, is a +4. So 32 is 36 ounces. And the 34, I think, is a +6. So it's 40 ounces. And it's all inloaded. It's a wood bat. You can swing with it live and stuff like that. So we use that bat. And it works. It works fine. We have another one called a whip stick. WHIPSTICK.com. You can go there, whipstick.com or the startinglinerstore.com, and I have discount codes and stuff. It's the same price on both sites. But the whipstick is cool because it's like a rain stick. If you've ever held a rain stick, you flip it upside down and you hear all the beads inside go, then you flip it back over and so it's got, I don't know if it's buckshot or BBs or whatever it is that's in there, but it's weighted at drop zero. So they're longer bats, so 36, 38, 40, and 42 inches. So the drop zero, so the 36 is 36 ounce, 36 inch, 36 ounce. But the weight is moving. So as the hitter swings the bat, all those BBs and buckshot will rush down to the bottom, the end of the bat. So it's almost like a super in-loaded bat, because the difference is a moving weight has much more inertial force in it than a stationary weight like a wood bat. So it's the difference between me taking a 10-pound plate in the weight room, setting it on your foot, you kind of feeling how that feels, and me picking that plate up and dropping it on your foot. Two different experiences. One will probably have you going to the hospital. So the whipstick is much more in-loaded aggressive. And I tell and it's also the diameter, the barrel's the diameter of like that yellow wiffle ball bat. So it's a small ball, a small barrel type of bat, training aid. So what we do is we do high-low, a good example of what we would use that for. Again, going back to your original question on what bat is the right size and if they're using a too heavy bat. So we basically get them swinging super, super heavy bats so that when they get to their bat, even if it felt heavier before, now it feels like they're swinging a feather,
Right.
So it's all about perspective. So we put a way heavier bat in their hand to make their regular bat feel lighter. And just over time, doing overload training, it could be 3 or 4 times a week, doing maybe 3 to 5 sessions per session, 3 to 5 sets per session. They're eventually going to get stronger. And what's amazing about that is we had a girl here, one of the dads, or her brother is in the same kindergarten class as my son. And she's a freshman. The sister is a freshman in high school this last year. She's going to be a sophomore this next year. It's coming fall. And she, for 6 weeks in the fall, she did nothing but overload and underload training. So underload would be swinging a lighter bat, super light bat, super fast. So she did nothing but overload and underload training for 6 weeks. No mechanical, or 5 weeks, 5 or 6 weeks. No mechanical changes, nothing. Just overload, underload. She went from a 55-mile-an-hour ball exit speed to a 63-mile-an-hour ball exit speed. So she gained 8 miles an hour with a softball, which is amazing, in 6 weeks, just doing overload, underload. Wow. And she ended up making her varsity team as a freshman. Wow. She wouldn't have made it. She wouldn't have made it with a 55-mile-an-hour. Maybe her JV team, but most likely she'd been playing freshman ball that first year. But that just upgraded her swing 8 miles an hour in the softball. And now she played. She was playing varsity team. So that was kind of a big deal for her. And so that's a big case study. And again, on the softball stage, but it works baseball too. It works both ways. It's humans. It doesn't matter if it's a girl or a boy. It doesn't matter if the hitter's 7 years old or 24 years old. Obviously, age appropriate. You're not putting a 40-ounce bat in a 7-year-old's hands, age appropriate weight and all that kind of stuff. But it works. I do that with my son who's 6. You're talking about, I think it was your son, right?
Yeah.
That was 6. Yeah. So we put a donut on his bat. We put a donut that's 16 ounces and adds another pound to it. And we have him swing off of a tee or I'll throw it to him or whatever. But it's getting, we did that with his team this last year, this whole team we had. But one of our pregame things was I threw wiffle balls to them. They put the donut on their bat and they either had to hit the ball on the ground or they had to hit the ball in the air. Because I was doing the machine. We did it as a machine pitch thing, the spring-loaded one, where we throw it to them. So I could see, me being the pitcher, I could see if their barrel was passing under the ball or if it was passing over the ball. And then if I got them to feel swinging up and swinging down, I could get them in the middle. So if I caught the barrel going under, which happened most of the time, most of our hitters were uppercutting, and I would tell them to swing down on this next one. And they got really good towards as it always is, the last third of the season, really good at making that adjustment back to center. So overload training is really, really good for really kind of making that question on, is the bat too big or not big enough, irrelevant. Because if they can swing heavy bat and they can control it and they can control where the ball goes, when they put their bat in their hand, they're a barrel surgeon. Excellent.
Awesome tip there. Definitely want to try that with my son as well. What are some of your goals in the next 3 to 5 years? I know you said you got back into coaching your 6-year-old son. You got the new book coming out. What are some other goals you have? For yourself with your business. If you could share some of those with us.
Yeah, so I have decided my family is my biggest thing. God and family are my biggest thing. I've chosen not to open up my own hitting facility, although I do local lessons, but we do them out at my old high school alma mater. We just do it out at an open park. But I don't have any aspirations to buy a facility and be there, which I have some buddies that are at their facility during baseball season, 16-hour days. So for me, and I'm not judging them, but for me, I want to be home with my family. So I've chosen to do a mobile business. So half of my business is local, half of my business is online. And the online really helps because I don't have to do as much with it unless I'm doing like an online lesson. I have to be there and actually do the lesson. Most of it is either the books that are being sold or the online courses and things like that. So my goal is, I've had a lot of my parents and clients and stuff ask me would I want to coach a college team, and I've been asked and offered to coach college ball here locally, Division One. I think they're Division One or two. And the pros said, "Do you want to coach in the pros?" And I really don't, because it's going to take. I would love to. I mean, that's a great opportunity to do it. But family wise, I want to be here for my family. I don't want to be gone. Like they talk about the baseball widow, the wife that's the baseball widow, because during baseball season she's a widow. Husband's not around anymore.
Right.
So that's not really my goal to do that. I would love to consult with other teams and help them get better. But my goal with this new book coming out is, this last book we ended up selling and downloaded on Kindle. I think it was over 13,000 copies. And that in turn, and also my online courses and things like that have been much more than that. So that in turn helped. So as tens of thousands of coaches have helped, possibly hundreds of thousands of players, right? You're talking between Little League, 15 players per team versus college is 30 players per team. So, multiply that by the coaches. So this next book, my goal is to help 100,000 coaches in order to reach 1 million players. So that's kind of the goal with the next book and some of the other things that I'm going to be putting out along with it. But trying to affect more coaches, which will in turn affect more players.
That's fantastic. I mean, the way you're doing things and the things you're talking about, I'm sure you can reach those goals. That's for sure, because the information that you're talking about is what's wanted and what's needed in the market today. So as we wind down here, Joey, I just wanted to ask, was there any topics maybe that, we didn't quite dive into yet that you wanted to speak about before we wind down here?
Topics to speak about? Probably, one of the one things that I like, and I listen to podcasts too. So some of the questions that get asked, one of them is like the books that you recommend, and I recommended a couple already. But kind of the big thing is for coaches to develop a growth mindset. And the book by Carol Dweck, Dr. Carol Dweck, Dweck, called Mindset, is a huge one. Very simplified book. It's the main theme of the book. You have a fixed mindset and a growth mindset, and she spends the whole book using different examples and stuff like that on contrasting those two things. So I would say for coaches that we come into contact with, some of them you can really tell that they have a fixed mindset, that they're done learning, they've been done learning for decades, to read that book so that they can become aware of where they're at if they're stuck. And then if they're not, if they do have that growth mindset, then it helps to kind of inspire them to keep going and doing that thing and pushing that same thing out to other coaches, being kind of the light for other coaches. So growth mindset is the big one. The other one is, we get a lot of coaches, or some objections where they'll say the excuse, right, when they see a 67-pound hitter hitting a ball 180 feet, or some of it, I've actually seen other coaches, not my kids, not my hitters, but other coaches saying 70-pounders are hitting the ball 240, 250 feet, which is crazy. Is the excuse is, well, they're just born with it. They're just born with it. Born with what? They're 70 pounds. It's not like they're not like Giancarlo Stanton or Aaron Judge, where they're 6'9". You can excuse away that, even though those guys do mechanically, they're very mechanically sound. But the other book is Sports Gene. I think I was getting him and Mike Epstein. Last name is Epstein. I don't know if it's Mike Epstein. I think he's the rotation lighting guy. It's David Epstein, I think. And he makes a very good case, very, very scientific case on the two basic premises of that book is, are we born with it or do we have to work hard for it? And at the end of the book, I love that he said, if somebody tells you that somebody is born with it, the talent, it's 100% talent. The best in the world is 100% talent. Or if they say the best in the world is 100% work ethic, both are wrong because it's a little bit of both, you know? And so I think those two books, besides the ones I mentioned on the mechanics side with Tom Myers, Dr. Serge Grakowetsky, Spinal Engine, and Dr. Eric Dalton's The Dynamic Body, I think mindset and the sports gene will help open up coaches' minds to, hey, well, maybe there's something more there than just, well, it's just based on talent, or that I got a fixed mindset and I don't know it, and this is actually holding me back, holding my hitters back and stuff like that. I just feel so bad for these hitters that some of these fixed mindset coaches are working with, because they might as well be throwing money down the toilet because they're not giving them much of a chance. I had one guy on an ad that I'm running. It's just a light campaign on Facebook for, I think, Haines Performance Lab. And it's before and after of a hitter I worked with online, and a really good one. I mean, he made this change within like a couple of weeks. It was pretty cool. Not all me, you know, he's putting the work in. But in the image, it was kind of like it was obviously two different videos, but one image looked bigger. He was bigger, and the other image, it was smaller, but it was just the movement, like the first image, the before, he was leaning forward, almost like lunging his body over his front leg. And then the last image, or the after image, was him in a better hitting position. So the point is the movement, right? The movement changed, not that I took a snapshot of it and he was bigger in one picture and smaller in the other one. But one guy goes, "This hitter sucks." Wow. On the thing. And I'm like, "Are you kidding me, dude?" And then he starts to backpedal and he goes, "Well, one's bigger than the other." You know, I'm like, "Dude, that's not the point of the before and after." And he's like, "Is this real or not?" And I'm like, "Dude, this is real, bro." You know, but he's like, "This kid sucked." And he goes, "No, I'm actually interested in buying your book. I want to read more." And I said, "I actually don't want you buying my book. I don't want you buying it at all, because I don't want coaches like you with a fixed mindset using my information, because you make me look bad." You know, right. So I did a reverse psychology of that. So those two books, I think, will help to the coach that has a fixed mindset of kind of bringing it to their forefront. Although probably they're not listening to your podcast. You're not getting a lot of fixed mindset people, because it's more of a growth mindset. But that one and sports team will kind of help people understand that it's not just all talent, and it's not just all work ethic. It's a little bit of both.
Awesome. I love reading. I got both of those written down there. I want to hear your answer to this question, because I've enjoyed this entire conversation. I love your thought process on a lot of things. But if you could go back and tell your teenage self anything, anything at all, what would it be?
Anything else? I love this question. This is the butterfly effect question. So I wouldn't take back really anything that I did, because it all happens for a reason. And that first book that I got was, what was it? The Making of a Hitter by Jim Lefebvre. It was a dog-eared, pale yellow covered book that I found in a corner bookstore. Very tiny little, almost like the hallway in your house, right? And I found that book, and that kind of sparked everything. But then it also caused me to do too much, to read into it too much. If I would have just stuck with that, I would have been fine. Probably those 4 years that I ended up in a downward spiral. But the one thing I would tell myself was to keep an open mind and to use the scientific method or the scientific process in experimenting with, and it didn't have to be baseball, but it could be anything, to just kind of learn that process of taking a control and then developing kind of a hypothesis or a question, right? Is showing the numbers, does it increase ball exit speed in baseball sense? And then taking it to the next step, which is developing a hypothesis of how, this experiment's going to go. I think it's going to be showing numbers is going to be better, or not showing numbers is going to be better. And then developing the research, going into the study and research, getting the data, and then making the conclusion, and kind of working that process a little bit better. Because I think just in life in general, and again, not just in baseball or softball, but in life in general, whether it's you're trying to lose weight or whether whether it's going through school, like it could help me going through school on how to study and study habits, things like that. Finding out that going on an all-night binger the night before a test is probably not a good decision. So testing those things out, I think would really help. So if it's anything that I would tell my teenage self is to kind of read up into that whole method and being passionate, going in and taking a passionate curiosity to different things and really dig deep, no matter what. If it has anything to do with what you want to do with life, if you got a passionate curiosity about something, go into it and try it. That's what my wife and I really encourage our kids to do. Is we don't care what the passion is for, the curiosity is about. We let them kind of feel around and go in there until they're done with it.
I like it. I like it a lot. I mean, I'll tell you the one thing that I'm taking from this tonight is to read and not just watch videos and think you know it all. Actually read, soak in some knowledge, apply it, and go back and read it again and reapply. It's kind of what it feels like and seems like, which I think is fantastic. One of the things we also like to ask here is if we could reach out to anybody else that you could think of that could, whether it's a coach or a player or another instructor, maybe somebody who has a good story, who do you think the Going Yard podcast should have on as a future guest?
Okay, so as I'm talking, I'm gonna go on because I'm gonna get his Twitter handle. But so first one, I know you guys have talked to the backspin tee guys. You talked to Taylor.
Yep.
Have you guys talked to Perry Husband?
No.
Okay, put him on your list. So Perry, you can find him at hittingisaguest.com. He's one of my good friends. We've come to know each other very well since we went to Anaheim with the backspin tee guys at Anaheim ABCA. This was like probably 4 years ago, 3 or 4 years ago. And then we went in Dallas. We hung out for like a whole day. I learned so much from him. But Perry Husband, so you can go hittingisaguest.com, or his Twitter handle is at EV, V as in Victor, E as in elephant, EV Perry Husband. So Perry husband, like husband and wife. So that's where to find him there. Another one is Matt Noakes. I don't know if you guys have had him on.
No, we haven't, but I definitely follow along because his information's pretty high level stuff for most people.
He's good, yeah, and he'll get on some tangents, man. I call him. He's one of my favorite mad scientists. He's out there, but he's really thinking about this stuff, and whether he knows it or not, he goes to that scientific method, that scientific process. When he's looking at something, he asks that question, develops a hypothesis, looks at the data, or looks at the researches and studies it, and then brings the data and all that kind of stuff. So he's a good dude. So Matt Noakes, Nokes. I can't remember his site is naturalswing.com or something like that. But you can just put in Matt Noakes, Nokes, baseball hitting, and his site will come up. And I think he might be just Matt Noakes on Twitter, at Matt Noakes or something like that. So him for sure. And then the last one I would say is Coach JP. So on Twitter, this is when I was finding out. So he's out of Arizona. Just met him over the last couple months. He's definitely a growth mindset guy. He's read and looked at a lot of people's hitting philosophies, and recently came across my stuff. And like some of the stuff and whatnot. He's very vocal on Twitter, not in a bad way, but in a good way. He puts out a lot of good stuff and whatnot. But his Twitter handle is at Hitter Haven, Haven, at Hitter Haven. So Coach JP. Those are the three I would say.
Awesome. Some great baseball minds. I love it. We'll definitely have to get in touch with them because they're definitely. I know the first two you're talking about. But I have to catch up on JP here because it sounds like he could provide some good information and knowledge.
Yeah, those two, JP and Matt, are good hitting guys. Perry's a good hitting guy too, but Perry's got a lot of cool stuff on effective velocity. That's a whole nother world that he goes into, and I'm still learning. He's a black belt in it, obviously, but he's been doing it for a couple decades, so he's got a lot of research, a lot of study into it, and I'm using it. He uses it more for pitching, but he's used it for hitting too. He worked with Carlos Pena back in 2008 or 9, I think, on the reverse side of EV. So how to reverse engineer EV from a hitter's perspective. And so that's what I'm interested in. I don't care what the pitchers do. I'm just trying to counter what the pitchers do. So he'll be an interesting conversation for you. He's got a lot of data, a lot of cool stuff that he's been doing over the last couple of decades.
Appreciate those recommendations, because it'll be fantastic. Joey, for anybody who wants more information, where they can find your book, your website, can you just plug your social media websites and everything like that for everybody that wants to get more information on everything you talked about on this podcast?
Sure. Yeah. So I have a couple offers. I can send you links to those offers, so you're not trying to hunt and find it, because you probably won't be able to find it. But my website, hittingperformancelab.com, like I mentioned earlier, has almost 5 posts shy of 300 free blog posts that you can go there. I've tried to simplify it as much as I can to help people find things. There's a search bar people can search and things like that. And probably you'll see the free book, just pay $95 shipping and handling, as kind of a header, a red header with a green button at this time, as that's how I have it. I might change it in the future, but that's where it's at now. So they could probably find that offer there. They can go on my social media, Hitting Performance Lab on Facebook. Just put in Hitting Performance Lab. I think I'm around 34,600 followers or something like that. So you're kind of at the right spot. At Twitter, I'm at Hit Perform Lab, I think, at Hit Perform Lab. You can probably type in Hitting Performance Lab and it'll come up. So those are kind of the main ones. I'm on LinkedIn as Joey Myers, and YouTube. You can just search on YouTube for my YouTube channel, Hitting Performance Lab. Just search that, or Joey Myers, and my things should come up. I think I'm around 6,800. I'm closing in on 7,000 organic followers there. So just to let them know they're in the right spot.
Awesome.
But those are the spots. Yep. And then I'll send a link to you guys. I'll send a link direct to the book if people can't find it on Hitting Performance Lab. But I have another one that I'm doing for Father's Day, and we'll kind of keep it open. But it's a combine my 2 popular courses. One's the essential course. I think it's the Power Hitter 2.0, Engineering the Alpha. So it's just the essentials part to consistent power, and then the full course on Pitch Fling Dominator course, which is all kind of the line drive stuff, kind of what I'm going to be putting into the book, except the book's going to be much more updated. But those 2 courses I'm pairing together. Normally, I think they're $68, and for Father's Day, I think I'm doing like a $35, and you get both of those courses. So I can send that link to you guys.
Oh, excellent. Wow, that's a good deal, man. I really appreciate that, and for our listeners as well. Thank you so much for coming on. We do have one more question for you, and before I do that, I'm going to give a little love to one of our partners here, Baseball Lifestyle 101. If you go to BL101.com, you can find all the shirts, hats, shoes, slides, everything you think of, jewelry, anything for that baseball player, baseball coach, or baseball fan out there. Just go to BL101.com, enter promo code GYP10, and get 10% off of your entire order. All right, Joey, last question for you.
Sure.
If you had one at bat in the major leagues, what song would you choose for your walk-up song?
Yeah. So this is the one I chose in college, and it was "Wicked Garden" by Stone Temple Pilots.
Excellent.
That first initial riff of the guitar was what I was looking for, because I know some of these coaches don't like this, but I was a sprinter up to the plate. I wanted to show force running up there, and that song was perfect. It's a perfect sprinter song.
That's awesome.
Love it.
Awesome. All right, man. Well, we appreciate it. We wish you the best of luck. Look forward to the new book coming out. And looking forward to everyone that's listening to this to get so much value out of it. So we really appreciate it. Thank you.
Dan and Tyler, appreciate you guys' time. And again, like I said, it's always nice to talk to 2 dudes about baseball, because my wife doesn't care.
Appreciate it, Joey. Thanks, and really look forward to catching up with you and talking to you down the road. Best of luck with everything moving forward with your son's team and all those players, because sounds like they're in good hands, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And enjoy,
you guys your kids are in good hands too.
Yeah, enjoy that California sun.
Yes.
Yeah, it'll come. Maybe it'll make its way, but I don't know how long it'll take. Out to you guys.
All right, man. See you later.
We'll see you guys. Yep. Have a good night.
Bye. Oh, man. You know what would be great? Get him and Taylor on the phone at the same time, and then maybe throw a little bit of, trying to think who else I was thinking of, like real nerds out on that stuff. It's just excellent information.
Ryan from Johansson Baseball.
Yeah,
That'd
Joe
be
Hansen.
fun.
Yeah,
Joe Hansen. Yeah,
Yep.
baseball. Sorry, going way back in the interviews.
Yeah, that was a long time ago.
We wouldn't have to say much.
No.
Just say, hey, how are you doing?
Say, what do you guys think? And then just go. It was awesome.
It was like a tennis match, back and forth.
Yeah, we appreciate him coming on this show and giving all that information. I hope that helped everybody.
I mean, honestly, like, he's the kind of guy that, like, an hour-long podcast is tough because you could just do, like, a series of things. Like every topic could be an hour, you know what I mean?
I felt bad wrapping it up, to be honest with you.
I did. I just, I hope that more people go check his information out. I mean, obviously, he's sold a ton of books, but his information, it's very easy to go through, honestly. It sounds like it's crazy complicated, but I've looked through a lot of it, and I believe in it, honestly. It works. I've seen where it's working. So check it out, honestly. Don't sell yourself short and go check out what he's got, because it's definitely some next level stuff for the average fan and coach out there.
That's right. So as always, you can find us on all things social media at Going Yard Podcast and on Twitter at GY Podcast. And if you like what we're doing week in, week out, and you want to play a role in this and help us out, you can go to our Patreon site at patreon.com/goingyardpodcast. You can find out how you can help us out every single week, and we would absolutely appreciate that.
We would. We couldn't do it without you. So you please be a part of it if you can be. You can find all those links that Dan talked about on our website, goingyardpodcast.com. You can just Google us, Going Yard Podcast. You'll find our website and everything on there as well. You can find all of our downloads on there on iTunes, SoundCloud, Podbean, and Google Play. Make sure you like, subscribe. That way, every time we post a new episode, it ends up automatically downloaded for your drive to work or your workout in the gym.
That's right. So that's a wrap for this episode of the Going Yard Podcast. So for Joey Myers and the Haines Performance Lab, and from all of us here at the Going Yard Podcast, I'm Dan.
And I'm Tyler. See ya.
Later.